Good morning. I'm Dr. Arya Sharma. I'm the Scientific Director of Obesity Canada. As you probably know, Obesity Canada is Canada's national registered charity that's dedicated to improving the lives of Canadians through obesity research, education, and advocacy. Through its work, Obesity Canada educates health professionals, supports researchers, mentors trainees and students, and works with policymakers to ensure that all Canadians living with obesity receive the same level of prevention and care as Canadians living with any other chronic disease, like, for example, diabetes or hypertension. Now, the reason that Obesity Canada is hosting this series is because in light of the COVID-19 epidemic, we have learned that obesity or people living with obesity appear to be at a much higher risk for complications. In fact, just yesterday, I saw a study that came out of New York clearly showing that apart from being older, which is age, obesity is probably the second most important risk factor when it comes to complications from this infection. So this is obviously of huge concern to anybody who's living with overweight or obesity, and should be of concern to anybody who who has friends or family living with overweight and obesity. And so I think it's really important for us here at Obesity Canada to try to inform as many people as possible how best to cope with the current crisis, and try to support people living with overweight and obesity as best we can. So today I'm very happy to have with me Dr. Mary Forhan, who's a professor and chair of the Department of Occupational Therapy and Rehabilitation at the University of Alberta. Mary, welcome to this chat.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of work that you do?
Sure. So I'm an occupational therapist by training. So for about 25 years, I worked clinically in the community, in the hospital settings, and private practice with individuals living with various forms of experiencing disability, whether it be with mental health disorders. And then more recently, I started really working with people living with obesity or living in larger bodies, and looking at how that impacts participation in day-to-day living, and addressing some of the barriers that might prevent people from being able to fully engage in things like school and work and caregiving. And those barriers might be physical, due to some of the physical demands that obesity causes, but also from some of the social barriers, negative attitudes, beliefs about people living with obesity, or the built environment, so barriers that are created there. That morphed into a real interest in doing research. And so for the last 10 years, I've actually been leading a program of research looking at improving quality of life to reduce the disability experience for people living with obesity.
Now, you did mention healthcare, and you've been taking a particular look and a particular lens to seeing how people with overweight and obesity are treated in the healthcare system. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things I was hearing for so many years from patients was barriers to getting good quality health care. So one of the barriers that people were experiencing was accessing the physical spaces where healthcare takes place. So for example, in maybe a primary care office, just even having a comfortable place to sit in the waiting room, a chair that will accommodate their size and their body weight, and then being able to navigate through small office spaces and exam rooms, or not having access to equipment like the right blood pressure cuff or a washroom that would fit their size to provide urine samples, those basic kinds of things we don't think about. Or something as simple as the comment of, hop up on the scale, take off your shoes, hop up on the scale, and let's get a body weight, was really challenging. It's not easy just to flip off some shoes and put them back on again. So those were some of the basic things. But then on a more sort of urgent level, we were seeing barriers in the hospital system where patients were having delays getting up out of bed in the hospital after surgery or after a cardiac event, because people didn't know how to safely manage, or what we call patient handling, so lifts and transfers. So people maybe not getting their rehabilitation goals met in time, or having access to diagnostic equipment.
So of course now we're all staying at home, at least those of us who don't have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be at the front lines doing the essential work.
Yeah.
That includes a lot of people, who are working in grocery stores, and all the, truck and bus drivers, and all the people that we've come to depend on in this
Yeah.
crisis. But this has also affected your research right now. So what's happening in your lab right now, and how have you adapted?
Yeah. Well, not much is happening physically in the lab through physical distancing, but actually, the silver lining for us in all of this is we've had so much data we've collected over the years that it's giving us time to pause and really reflect on that. One of the projects that we've had going on for a while that we're really excited about is providing resources and tools for improving the quality of care that people get in healthcare settings. So we've been working really quite a lot with Alberta Health Services. I apologize, my dog. This is working from home. The dog is barking at the mail person. So we're looking at tools and resources to help improve reducing weight bias and stigma in the healthcare system. So some training tools and resources that anyone working in healthcare can use. Safe patient handling techniques, lifts and transfers, and using mechanical devices in a safe way. So it's better quality care and comfortable care for the patient, but also for the care provider. We're also really looking at making sure that people have access to the equipment that they need, so that the appropriate size walkers and wheelchairs and commode chairs and shower chairs are all available. So we're really excited to have this time to actually really start to really push those tools and resources forward so they're readily available. Another story, there's one more exciting thing, and I know you know about this, is we've developed this labeling system so that it's really easy to identify what the weight capacity of chairs and equipment and furniture in healthcare settings or in the community is. And so this is going to give us time to really get that project launched. So we're excited about that.
So now you're talking about all of the challenges that people face within the healthcare system when the times are good. Now we're in this, these are exceptional times here, and we know that right now the burden on every healthcare system is particularly high. And as we've already discussed, Obesity Canada is very concerned about this, because the data is emerging that especially people living with obesity seem to be the ones most in need of support.
Yeah.
So, are you hearing from your colleagues, or based on the work that you're doing, what are some of those particular challenges that might be even more challenging in times like these?
Yeah, I think
for healthcare workers. Let's start with the healthcare worker perspective here.
Absolutely. I think, one of the things that I'm starting to hear from some colleagues is, for themselves, having the right size protective equipment to be able to wear. So having scrubs and gowns and protective wear that actually fits larger bodies. And this is for the healthcare workers who are in the environment. So that's one key thing that we'll be able to reflect back on later. But that we know in everyday times that's a challenge. So I would imagine that's more now. The other thing is with patients, I think, is there's such things are happening so fast, and we know that at the best of times there's delays in getting the right size bed, the right size stretcher, the right size equipment in the hospital or even in a home environment, that those delays. So it'll be interesting to see how that's been managed in this crisis, and some lessons maybe to learn on how we can be proactive and anticipate the needs of clients with larger bodies rather than trying to scramble to meet those needs. So I'm sure everyone's doing their best and making do with what they have, but this might be an opportunity to reflect back so that we can know that we've got all the equipment ready that we need.
But it's not just healthcare systems. I mean, we know that people living with obesity, people living in larger bodies, face a lot of challenges, even just in everyday life, whether this is using public transportation. This might even be just grocery shopping. Which right now is even more difficult than it usually is, and probably takes even more time than it usually does. So what are some of those challenges, and what from an occupational therapist perspective? And I understand, as an occupational therapist, you want everybody to be able to function the best they possibly can. So what is, from that lens, what do you think is some of the what are some of the ideas, or what are some of the tips that you can give
Yeah.
to people living with obesity, who are trying to follow the rules, who are trying to social distance themselves?
Yeah.
Uh, what are those challenges, and how do you get through these times?
Yeah, I think, well, one of the things that we hear a lot with individuals is some anxiety about going out in public at the best of times, just with maybe a fear of falling, a fear of not having the physical space that they need to be able to move around. So the real increased awareness of one's body in sort of places and spaces. So one of the things that a lot of my colleagues are working on is helping reduce the anxiety of people. There's already anxiety about going out with the risk of an infection, but now we have on top of that the anxiety of mobilizing out in the community and maybe needing equipment and being mindful of wanting to give people that distance, that 6 feet that we need when we're out in public. So one of those, my colleagues are working a lot on reducing the anxiety associated with going out and about. The other thing is not taking risks. So making sure that if you need a mobility device to access public transit, or such as a cane or a walker, is keep using those things. Don't feel that they're getting in the way or reducing physical distancing. Those are really important for safety. So we want to make sure that people are still using their assistive devices. It might mean, though, cleaning them more often. So making sure that people are, using Lysol wipes or sanitizers to be able to keep things clean, because the infections can be transmitted through some of the surfaces that might be on their walkers or canes. So again, not saying everybody who lives with obesity needs a mobility device, but our higher risk populations that have mobility issues, we would be concerned about. And I think just, making sure that if certain food preferences or certain needs that you may have to help manage other chronic diseases, use delivery services if they're available, reach out to neighbors and friends for some support. Sort of all the universal recommendations that are being used for everybody is really take advantage of those and reach out for support when needed.
Now, you've talked about the issue around anxiety, but mental health is actually a much broader topic. We
Oh
talk
yeah.
about depression, we talk about trauma, we talk about PTSD, we talk about ADHD, and in times like this, I think well, I don't just think, I know it from myself, that
Yeah.
emotional eating can certainly be an issue,
Yeah.
uh, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
just eating out of boredom because you're stuck
Yeah.
at home. So,
Yeah.
what again? As an occupational therapist, how
Yeah.
do you keep yourself busy?
Oh yeah, it's I mean, that's the core of what we do, right? What do people do to occupy their time, whether it's formal or informal activities? So what we're really seeing is pretty neat, actually, is back to sort of the history of the roots of occupational therapy, which is this arts-based mediums and ways of diversion or developing new skills. So we're seeing a big movement in the crafts, arts and crafts that people are taking up at home, or picking up a new hobby. Maybe there's been a guitar sitting getting dusty in the corner of the house, and get on a YouTube video and start to, picking up a new hobby. Writing letters, communicating with people through social media if you have access to that. In people that don't live in Edmonton and can get out and garden, we're seeing a real surge in people wanting to get out and get back to nature and plant even a patio garden or a balcony garden, or if you have the luxury of a backyard space to be planting, vegetables, fruits and vegetables. And I'm seeing a real resurgence of getting back to some, what we might refer to as old fashioned activities, but can be very therapeutic, actually.
And can you also, briefly touch on the issue of the importance of maintaining connection? So we're talking about
Yeah.
physical distancing, but that doesn't mean social distancing, right?
No, and I'm so glad that the World Health Organization really made that stipulation that we don't want to isolate. I know for myself, a lot of people think I'm really outgoing and have lots of energy, which I really enjoy, but I also really enjoy my quiet time, and I really enjoy being on my own. But even I've had a bit too much of that lately. So I think it's doing what's meaningful for you. So picking up the phone and having having a phone conversation is important. Is maybe schedule that or make an effort to call one person a day and reach out, even if it's for 5 minutes, to touch base with people. Talk over the fence with a neighbor. I've seen communities have, at 7 o'clock to acknowledge and support the healthcare workers and the first responders, that people are using that as a social outlet as well and getting really active involved in that. So I think it's important to find what's meaningful for you. But if you don't want to socialize and you're feeling that you really need that quiet time, don't feel bad about that either. Find what works for you, follow it through. Reach out for help if you need it. There's so much awareness about that now. And occupational therapy, we really want to find out what's valuable and meaningful for you, and not feeling pressured about what you think others think you should be doing. So.
Now, I want to get back for a moment to the issues that larger people might face when they have to be admitted to a hospital, and we hope it doesn't happen, but we know it is happening. Are in need of intensive care, and might even have to be put on a ventilator, and there are certainly, particular challenges when it comes to that. Can you just explain some of those challenges, and so that people are aware of what might happen to someone who actually does need intensive care?
Yeah, so intensive care is, wonderful when you need it. But the downside of that is the rehabilitation that happens in the moment while someone's in ICU, but afterwards as well. The body is really fighting for survival when you're in those situations, and it's going to preserve itself to do the things that it needs to maintain. So people will then become weak. Their muscles will deteriorate quite quickly. They can become stiff, and the fear associated with that. It's a very traumatic experience. So what you may experience as an occupational therapist, we work on multidisciplinary teams. So we may be working with a team that's doing what you're calling proning. You're hearing a lot about proning. So there might be a lot of lifting and moving and mobilizing. And you want to know that your team knows what they're doing and trust that the care providers have been so well trained to do lifts and transfers. So I'm hoping that the training that we've done across Canada around lifts and transfers for patients with bariatric care needs is now being utilized. I'm starting to get messages that, oh, I'm so glad that video is available because we're using it. They'll expect, it may seem odd that people are getting up and being asked to walk in ICU hooked up to machines and IVs, but that's really important. So it's really important when it's safe to do so that patients are encouraged to get up and to move, because we don't want people getting too deconditioned. I think what we haven't seen yet and what we'll start to see is this post-COVID rehabilitation demands. So people who have had COVID-19 and are recovering from that, it's going to take months in some cases for people to get back to what their normal or their new normal is, and rehabilitation teams are going to be so important for that.
Yeah, and that's going to be both the mental health aspect and the physical health aspect.
Absolutely, yeah. And home care, I think home care and that transitioning, we've always want to get people out of hospital as soon as possible, but I'm hearing from my colleagues that the creativity and the demands to get people out as fast as we can safely, but that's going to put demand on the home environment and the caregivers at home to be able to help meet the needs of their family member in the home environment. So we're going to see this domino effect of where the demands on services are. And I really, really hope that people are going to be able to have access to equipment that will meet the needs of people with larger bodies so that it's safe. I don't want to see corners cut at this point, that somebody may come out of hospital and successfully overcome COVID and then get injured in a rehab or a home environment because the right size equipment wasn't available. So really hope that safety is being considered all the way down the continuum.
So as always, safety first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Mary, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time this morning and talking to us about these important issues. Obesity Canada is very much aware of the challenges that people living with overweight and obesity face in light of the epidemic, and the work and the research that you do certainly helps put a different lens on this, and ultimately does help people a lot, both people who have to professionally provide the support, but
Yeah,
also patients who are out there who need the support. So on
absolutely.
behalf of Obesity Canada, I would like to thank you very much for taking the time this morning. I know that despite being at home, you have a busy schedule.
It's okay.
And I'd like to thank all of the viewers for taking the time to watch this video. To find out more about Obesity Canada, please visit our website at obesitycanada.ca. You can also follow Obesity Canada on all of the social media outlets, Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn and everywhere else. Um, and these are tough times for everybody, but if you can afford it, and if you do value the work that Obesity Canada does, please consider making a small donation to support this important work by this health charity that is working hard to improve the lives of Canadians living with obesity. So thank you again, everybody, and we'll talk again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.